Hey everyone, it's Kino here. Thanks for tuning in to Living the Yogi's Life, where I share with you the tools that I use to make the lessons learned on my yoga mat relevant to my daily life. Now yesterday I did something that I've only done a handful of times in my life. I'm not really super proud of it, but I slept in over my alarm. I slept in by almost 3 hours. The 3 hours that I devoted to sleep were actually the time that I was going to devote to my practice. So when I woke up and I realized that it was almost 9 o'clock instead of the early time that I was set to wake up, closer to 6 a.m., I realized that I got a message from the universe that said, you need to rest. So over the last 2 weeks, I've been in 5 different cities in 4 different countries, and I've been teaching and going and filming and keeping up with all of my work and keeping up with everything. And I think I got a big message that just said, hey, you need to rest. So what I learned from this is that just like in your yoga practice, also in life, you work and you work and you work and you work. And at some moment, you need to pull back, take a step back, and just rest. I'm not a naturally good rester. I'm not a naturally good relaxer. I'm a natural go, go, go kind of person. I like the feeling of moving forward. I like the feeling of progress. I like the feeling of putting in work to something. And when it's time for me to take a step back, it almost has to be forced on me. So the 3 hours that I slept in was like a message from my body, maybe a message from the universe that, hey, you just need a little bit more sleep. And honestly, I'm so thankful for it. After those 3 hours of sleep, a nice, easy, fun morning at the pool, a really yummy breakfast, and a little shopping excursion, I kind of felt really, really renewed. Now, I landed here in Copenhagen, which is where I am now, and I'm using that energy to make this vlog. So I hope that you're enjoying it, and I hope that it inspires you to live your life according to the yogic values. Now, here's another thing that this sort of reminded me of. When I first started the practice, I applied this kind of work, work, work attitude into all of the things that I wanted to do, all the postures that I wanted to do. When I first started the practice, was not really naturally very flexible everywhere, certainly not very strong. I remember the sensation of my hips being real tight when I started, and I went on this big mission. I'm gonna open my hips, and I did all these stretches, and I learned all the anatomy about what is the hip joint, it works, and it works, and it worked. And then, when I went to India, and I studied with my teacher, Sri Patabi Joyce, he had 3 days off in a row. I'd never heard of anything like taking 3 days off of my practice in a row. I felt like this is, not allowed, otherwise you're a bad yogi. So anyhow, but I was there. I took the opportunity to go visit some of the sites in the surrounding area of Mysore. And over these 3 days where I did no practice, a lot of sleeping, and a lot of eating, the only thing that happened, which is really interesting, is my hip joints, they started to crack, 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 crack. Every time I stood up, they would crack. Every time I sat down, they would crack. If I just moved around, both of my hip joints would crack. Now, I immediately registered this as a negative sign, like, oh my God, my hips are getting tighter and tighter because I'm not practicing, I'm not working. But for some reason, I just sort of surrendered. And when I went back to practice after those 3 days off, I had this sort of miraculous experience. I could tell just from the very beginning of the practice, from the first 10 minutes, that there was actually more openness in my hip joints than before. It was almost like I put in all of that work, and then what I needed to do was to sit back and receive. And this is a really hard thing to understand, especially for those of you who are like me, who like to go, 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 and put in the work, and you want to feel like you're doing the work, that you can only work so much. And this is kind of the lesson of yoga itself, is that you work and you work. This is called abhyasa in Sanskrit, where you put in the practice, you put in your work. This is your effort towards striving. This is your effort along the path of yoga. You work and you work and you work. But 50% of it is non-attachment, vairagya, which is non-attachment to the fruits of your labor. So in essence, you work and you work and you work, but at the same time, you have to let go at some moment. And in your attainment of the goal, by letting go, you understand that that which you receive, that which you accomplish, you don't do from the small sense of ego, the small sense of I, but you receive it from a power that's bigger and grander than you could ever possibly imagine. And then, when you attain your goals, you're able to maintain your humility, your open-hearted, compassionate nature, which really is the essence of why we do yoga in the first place. So next time you feel yourself pushing and pushing and pushing towards a posture, remember to leave yourself a little bit of space, a little bit of time just to relax, just to breathe, and to receive the benefit of all of the work that you've been putting in. You can't do everything yourself. It's only so much you can do. This is something that I've really had to learn. There's a limit to how much I can do, but there's not a limit to how much the universe can do for me. So in this way, you put in the work, you open your heart, you open your mind, and you receive. And this is something that I think is very difficult for many people to understand, myself included, because so much of our sense of self-worth, so much of our sense of identity is tied into this striving sense of accomplishment. So it's as though as we accomplish things and as we go forward, we get this sort of immediate validation of our sense of self-worth. But the aspect of receiving is this aspect of relaxation, this pause that you make, that you say, and you almost say to yourself, who I am is enough. I don't need to do all of these things in order to be worthy of all of the greatness that I desire. If you just say that, just pause with me for a moment, and almost just take a moment and recognize that you don't need to change anything about yourself. You don't need to be someone else. Just who you are is enough. In many ways, we're all perfect, and we've been put on this earth, I believe, to accomplish some mission that's been probably assigned to us before we've been born. And if we can find what that mission is, we can do it with our full hearts. And we don't need to be anyone else, because that's our unique mission. So more than just working, going, take a moment to breathe, stop, rest in the knowledge of your own greatness. Rest in the knowledge that who you are is enough, that who you are is worthy of all of the greatness, all of the beauty, all of the power, all of the success that you want. That knowledge in and of itself is like a beacon of sending a message out there that says you're ready to receive. And then, who knows, you might not have to work as hard. You can get the results just by taking a few days off and sleeping in, and then things will come to you from this sort of happy state of attraction, this happy state of ease and flow. And this makes for a better yoga practice, but it also makes for a better life, because you just have a little bit more space to be a happy person in the world and share that good vibes with all the people around you. I hope you're inspired to do your yoga practice, and I hope you're inspired to take the lessons learned on your mat into your daily life and to be a beacon of hope, a beacon of yoga and the whole yoga lifestyle in the world. Thanks so much for sharing the journey with me. Namaste.